The best way of describing this is, imagine, if you will, Midnight Run being remade, but in the role of Robert De Niro, Gerard Butler, and in the role of Charles Grodin, Jennifer Aniston. Because that's essentially what this is. The story is, there's this couple, right? They used to be married, but they're not married anymore. She is now a hot reporter. And when I say hot reporter, I don't mean hot reporter in the Jennifer Aniston is hot sense. I mean she's a hot reporter. She's on the trail of some
what, you
hot...
mean she's just hot?
No, she's a hot
It's
reporter,
sunny.
as opposed to she's a hot and then a reporter. You understand the difference?
She is sought after. She's very good at what she does. Is that
it's the reporting that she does that has the hotness, not the Jennifer Aniston.
and not her clippity-clop high heels?
No, although she does clip and indeed clop, and she has one of those movie jobs that she's a journalist in. She comes into an office and she shows no sign of ever having worked there. I mean, this is like the Meg Ryan is a fighter pilot thing, So I don't believe for 1 minute that Jennifer Aniston is a hot reporter. But anyway, she has a parking offence. She's meant to go to court. She doesn't go to court because she's so hot on the trail of a story that she needs to go and follow this lead. So she skips court to go and do this, and then because she skipped bail, a bounty hunter is set out, and oh, the hilarity, the bounty hunter that is set out to catch her is her former husband. So he is given the job of arresting and retrieving his ex-wife and bringing her back to jail. So, and then the deal is they'll have to spend time together, probably handcuffed together at some point, and they hate each other. Or do they? Here's a clip.
Fancy meeting you here.
Yeah. Fancy.
You look great. As beautiful as the day we first met.
I don't know what you're up to, but I'm working.
Oh, working? Me too. And what I do is I hunt down criminals. Idiots who jump bail, specifically.
You are a bounty hunter?
Yep. As much as it pains me to say this, and it really does, I gotta take you to jail. You want to make a break for it? I will give you a 10-second head start for old time's sake.
I am an adult, Milo.
10, 9,
Do you really think that I would...
8, 7, 6.
Is that her running off there?
That is her running off going clippity-cloppity. And can you tell the difference between that and the horses? Listen, this is what Gerard says about the project. I can't do... Shall I do it in the voice of Gerard in Sparta?
No.
I will do it anyway. I took one look at this script and I loved it. It was sharp, hilarious and edgy, and I was on. I laughed from start to finish, and I thought, I want to play that guy. And so then, right, this is a quote about how the film was directed. It said, through the bickering and the fighting, they have to start falling in love as well. And the director did a really good job executing that. Well, if by did a really good job executing that, you mean did a really good job killing that idea totally stone dead, then yes. Here are the problems. Firstly, the biggest problem in this film is not Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston may have the televisual face to die for. And every time I see her, I scream, why aren't you on television? But here, and I don't believe she's a reporter, and she doesn't do anything funny at any point, or cute, or in any way interesting, but she's not the really big problem. The really big problem is that Gerard Butler is staggeringly out of his depth in a way which is really quite surprising, because essentially all he's being asked to do is to run around being gruff and occasionally look happy about the fact that he's hoiking Jennifer Aniston over his shoulder and then locking her in the trunk of a car and then driving off. But he looks like he doesn't really know how to do that. I mean, you keep thinking, fine, every now and then he takes his shirt off and he does the Sparta thing, and the toplessness in the film is entirely Gerard Butler. But he has no comedy value or timing, or it's like comedy is a foreign language. It's like watching somebody go, this comedy thing, how does that work? Because I read the script and I laughed, but how does it work when you get it on screen? If you go to the BBFC's description of the film, which is once again is brilliant, right? It talks about the fact that the reason it's got the certificate it's got is because it includes infrequent sex references. It's got a scene set inside a pole dancing club in which they point out, but all the dancers are wearing some form of clothing, mainly thongs, which, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't count as some form of clothing. But then it says all issues.
What does it count of then? What does it count as?
What, do you think somebody's wearing a thong, they're clothed?
No, but it counts as clothing, doesn't it? If you're wearing a thong, that's clothes. What else would it be?
All right, on a technical level, you're perhaps correct that a thong is technically clothing, Simon. And I would invite you to demonstrate that fact by coming in next week correctly dressed for the show wearing a thong.
I always wear my 5 Live thong every week.
I really wish you hadn't put that image in my head. Anyway, at the end of the BBFC's report, it says, and I quote, "All issues in the film are set in a comedy context." And that is it. Once again, the BBFC have brilliantly reviewed the film. Actually, the whole film is set in a comedy context. They didn't say the issues in the film are allowable because they're funny. They didn't, because sometimes what they say is, well, this happened, but it was, it was funny, or this happened, but it was done in a way. But what they say is it's set in a comedy context. And what you have here is exactly that, a film which is set in a comedy context, but isn't ever at any point actually funny. And if you think of Midnight Run, which of course is the film this is trying so hard to be and failing so miserably, you think of all the ways that Charles Grodin prevents Robert De Niro from getting him to where he needs to get him, and things like the scene when Robert De Niro wants to get him on a plane and Charles Grodin suddenly has that panic attack. These things go down, and it's every time they end up in a worse situation. It's brilliantly sort of. In this, it's just like the plot. What are we going to do now? Oh, I don't know. I know. Let's get them to have to stop in the Love Shack motel where they spent their honeymoon. Okay, fine. Let's do that. How should we do it? I know, the car will catch fire. Somebody will shoot at them. They'll break down. I don't. It doesn't matter. Just do it. And do you think there's any possibility that when they're in that place, one of them will handcuff the other one to the bed for comedy purposes, and the maid will? I'm sure that will happen. Just go. So the whole thing is a comedy context from a script that made Gerard Butler laugh out loud, which Jennifer Aniston presumably did on the basis that it would somehow broaden her repertoire, which it hasn't, and which has nil, nada, nothing, niente, nul point laughter whatsoever. Total straight-face experience, and proof positive that what Gerard Butler needs to do when he's in a film is to take his shirt off, put on a loincloth, hold a shield, and go, "This is Sparta!"
Is it worse than Leap Year?
Actually, it is. And the reason it's worse than Leapy Ear is that Leapy Ear was just terrible from beginning to end. But this was actually disappointing, because I thought that Gerard Butler would be quite funny, because having seen him in that previous film in which he did "If you don't do this now, I'm going to do the next thing. What's that? I'm going to kill everyone." In which, I mean, in all his serious films, I've always thought he was funny. This is the funny film, and he's clearly not got a comic bone in his body.